Welcome back to another episode of The Sully Show, where today we are finishing up part 2 of whiskey terminology. We're diving into a little bit more in-depth detail of phrases, terminology, and words that you will see on whiskey bottles out there. So before we get started, I'm gonna go make myself a drink, sit back down with my notes, and we will get to it. Okay, we are back with our drink and our notes, so we're going to dive right on in. Now, the most important note to know with different whiskey terms, definitions, words that you will find on bottles is it's only a certain amount of things that are actually legally regulated. We're going to start with single barrel. Now, single barrel is legally regulated. It can only be one barrel. All right. And so basically single barrel is one single barrel out of the batch. It's poured one barrel at a time. It's just taken from the regular batch. So say Jack Daniels makes a big batch of the number 7. They take one of those barrels and they're like, hey, I think this one's going to be a good barrel. They pull it off to the side, age it for a little bit longer in different aging conditions, and that'll change the flavor. No one single barrel is alike. Even like Jack Daniel's single barrel, one batch is going to taste a little bit different than the other because there's so much that goes into what makes whiskey taste the way it does. I mean, humidity, sunlight, temperature. Now, small batch whiskey. This is one I've been seeing a lot lately. It is not legally regulated, believe it or not. Now, the whiskey distillery world has kind of come to agree, from what I found, has come to agree that anything 150 barrels or less, it can be called small batch, but there's no legal definition to it. So while there's a agreement in the world that 150 and less is small batch, that doesn't mean that if it says small batch whiskey, it's actually going to be 150 barrels or less. Chilled filtering. We talked about this a little bit in the last video. We just kind of like briefly mentioned it. But basically what chilled filtering is kind of, I mean, in the name, it's whiskey that was chilled before being filtered. But why does it make a difference? So whiskey that is below 46% alcohol will actually start to haze over when frozen, when like you put it in the freezer and everything. So when they chill filter it, they're able to remove the chemical compounds, such as the fatty acids, that make it hazy when it gets frozen. So that's kind of why they chill filter it right there. Now, Jim Beam chill filters up to 50%. Anything 50% or less ABV you get from Jim Beam will most likely be chill filtered. And chill filtering can take out, they are called long chain esters. I think I pronounced that right. Long chain esters. It's basically what makes the whiskey taste the way it does, have the mouthfeel it does, kind of makes the whiskey what it is on a chemical level is what those long chain esters are. Now, chilled filtering can take those out. However, it doesn't take them out enough to ruin the whiskey, and it can actually bring out some flavors that you wouldn't have noticed before if you left those in there. So it changes the whiskey a little bit, but not enough to ruin it, and it does take out that hazy effect when frozen. So if someone freezes your whiskey, they don't look at it and see it all hazy and kind of throw them off there. So that's what chilled filtering means. Basically, it's just chilled before it's filtered, and if you freeze it, you won't have to worry about any haziness or anything like that. Now, bottled in bond. If you're in like whiskey groups or you talk to a lot of whiskey people, when they write it out, they don't want to put BIB, bottled in bond. This is by far the most regulated whiskey out there in the United States, at least. It has 231 different regulations it has to follow in order for you to be able to slap bottled in bond on the label. So bottled in bond is actually a legal definition. Chill filter was as well. I think I forgot to mention that. But bottled in bond is a legal definition and the most regulated legal definition there is. So the basics for bottled and bond has to be aged at least 4 years and bottled at exactly 100 proof. It has to be made by one distiller in one distillery in one season. So, say distillery seasons from January to September. All right, that's kind of when these people distill their whiskey. They can make one batch of bottled and bond between that time. Where, you might be able to make a batch every month or something. I don't know exactly how long it takes, but say a batch every month of regular whiskey. You can make one batch of bottled and bond. And it can be made by only one person. And it has to be aged in a bonded warehouse. A bonded warehouse is a warehouse ran by the ATF or by the federal or state government. I think it can be either. It's completely under governmental watch. You put it in there, nobody has access to it. Now, you might be asking yourself, this seems a little excessive for some whiskey. Why? Why is that? The reason is in the late 1800s, they used to put a lot of stuff in liquor to make it pass as whiskey. So gin and vodka were the two main things they used. And it was cheaper to get those than whiskey. But people liked whiskey more than gin and vodka. So some people would take gin or vodka and they would put random stuff in it, such as wood chips, licorice, tobacco, iodine, and even formaldehyde kind of stuff. Whatever they could find, they'd throw in there to make it look, smell, and taste more like whiskey. And then they sell it as whiskey. So obviously you can see a lot of people are getting sick and dying because they're drinking vodka mixed with formaldehyde or vodka mixed with tobacco or whatever. So the government passed the bottled and bond regulations so that you had to follow a certain set of rules that would make the whiskey more safe. Nowadays, whiskey's pretty much safe. No one is really taking vodka and dumping in extra things to kill you. So it's kind of more of a historical remembrance nowadays. It's on the bottle. A lot of times it'll be a higher class whiskey, but not always. But now it's kind of just that historical, almost paying tribute to your roots type of deal is the main reason that it's on those bottles. But they still have to follow all those regulations to put it on there. Barrel strength is what we're going to get into next. Barrel strength is also known as barrel proof, cask strength, and cask proof. Cask and barrel are interchangeable words. A cask is just a wooden vessel used to age whiskey. A barrel is a wooden barrel used to age whiskey. They're interchangeable. Basically, barrel proof just means that it was bottled at the proof that it came out of the barrel. So, a lot of whiskeys, they'll pour whiskey out the barrel into a bottle, and then they'll put water in there to kind of water it down and get it to, if they want 40%, 50%, whatever. Barrel strength means they took the whiskey right out the barrel, put it into a bottle. It's whatever strength it was coming out of that barrel. Now, full proof, also known as entry proof, is similar but different. A lot of people mix these words up. Full proof is whiskey is bottled at the proof it was when it entered the barrel. Whenever you age whiskey, some of it is going to evaporate, some of it's going to soak into the barrel, some of it's going to go away. Which means that what liquid is left is going to have a stronger alcohol content. Now, high proof whiskey this isn't a legal term either. This is kind of just something that some people say it's high proof, some people, are just like, yeah, this is what it is. But basically, high proof whiskey is anything over 100 proof. So it's 101 and above is high proof whiskey. Legally, though, you cannot be over 192 proof, which is 96% alcohol. So it's pretty hard to get there. Everclear, I think, is 190, and it's 95% alcohol. There's a Polish vodka. Can't pronounce the name of it. Not even going to try. But it is 192 proof. It's 96% alcohol. Strongest liquor you can buy in America is just Polish vodka. Sour mash. Drink down. Now, sour mash is whiskey made with old mash to basically jumpstart the fermentation process and keep consistent throughout the batches. So they'll make their mash for one batch and then take some of that and add it into the mash for the next batch. It's a pretty popular term out there. Not many people put it on the bottle, I've noticed, but a lot of people use the practice. Now, wheat bourbon. A lot of whiskeys use corn primarily, rye secondary. Wheat bourbons use wheat instead of rye as that secondary grain. So it's still mostly corn, but there's wheat in there instead of rye to, change the flavor a little bit. It only makes it a little bit softer, a little bit sweeter than when they use rye. So now black, like Black Barrel, like Jameson Black Barrel, Jim Beam Black. If you see that, normally it means it's just aged for slightly longer and bottled at a little bit higher proof. Like maybe 5% higher, aged slightly longer. Again, not really a legal definition. I think it's just kind of what people use to throw on there, make their thing cool. Now, the last two we have here are going into our brandy category here. They don't really have anything to do with whiskeys, but as I put brandy in the last video, we got to add a little bit of brandy to this video to keep some continuity. So, VSOP and XO are probably two big, should call it, explanationers that you'll see on brandy bottles, like Hennessy VSOP, Hennessy XO. They're like the higher class of Hennessy. So the VSOP stands for a very super old pale. So I'm not really sure why they decided to name it that. They just did. But it's aged for at least 4 years. So regular brandy, I believe, has to be aged for at least 2. The VSOP is aged for a little bit longer. And the XO, as you guessed it, is just aged even longer. The XO has to be aged for at least 10 years. So, again, just same thing, just aged a couple extra years so they can charge you a little bit more money. But, it does also make it taste good and add some flavors to it. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative for you. Hopefully you learned something, and now you'll be able to do, when you're looking at whiskey or bourbon or Canadian whiskey or rye bourbon or whatever it is, now you're able to decipher some of the descriptions on the bottle. You're like a spy. You decipher things now. If I missed anything or if I was wrong about something, drop it in the comments. Let everybody know. If you all liked it, like, subscribe, help me out. If you have any tips for me on how I can improve, also drop those in the comments, because I'm always looking to get better and always looking to do better for y'all. But until next time, get yourself some whiskey, drink up, watch some videos, and cheers.